Dad paid for a dream holiday with me, but on the plane. His behavior turned so disturbing and inappropriate that I booked the first flight home and went no contact. My dad, 52M, had planned a holiday for him and me, 26F. He had paid for the holiday and said it was his treat and given me spending money. The plan was that I was to fly over to meet him in his home country and spend a few days with him and my granddad before flying out for the 2 weeks of holiday. The next day when we got the flight, he had a few drinks before we got on the plane. As he is a nervous flyer, I decided to just have a few Diet Cokes as it was too early for me to drink. When we got on the plane, he took the window seat and I sat in the middle seat. Then a man I'd never met was on the aisle seat and his family were across the aisle. In front of us were a family, mom, dad, and young child, maybe about 3. Before the plane took off, 4.5 hours flight, he was talking a lot about the physics of planes and what can go wrong. The man next to me told him, "You're gonna scare your daughter," and my dad kinda joked it off and then continued. During the safety briefing, he kept talking over it and prodding me when I was trying to listen. Then not long into the flight, he kept talking about physics and telling me how his ChatGPT says he's supremely intelligent and he struggles because nobody he talks to can keep up with him. I wasn't really listening much TBH, as every time I tried to talk he spoke over me or undermined me, and I was tired and kept having to take my headphones out and put my book down to be polite. But physics is his interest. I'm more into poetry and literature. As he was talking, he was pointing on the chair. The mother of the child in the seat in front of us politely turned around and let him know that he was disturbing their little girl, as every time he did that, the chair would shake and she was trying to sleep. He apologized, and then a few minutes later, he was doing it again. So she asked politely a second time. Then he dropped one of his headphones and went to stand up to look for it. As he did, he used the chair in front of him to help himself up, which in turn woke the little girl up. The father of the child stood up and said to him, "We've asked you 3 times now. She's awake now. Please, can you be considerate of who is sitting in front of you?" He was polite about it. My dad then very loudly shouted, "Fuck you," and went on a rant to the father of the little girl. He was quite aggressive and uncomfortable for everyone around TBH. There was a lot of swearing too, and he was very loud. The other guy didn't entertain it and just said to him, "Are you done?" and then sat back down. My dad starts ranting to me about it very loudly, and it was obvious he wanted the guy to hear. Then my dad says to me, "Do you agree?" But I didn't. I personally thought the way he acted was awful, so I'd said to him, "I think you were harsh," as it was the most gentle way I thought of to say it. My dad responded to this by saying, "How dare you side with other people over me?" And I'd told him that I was entitled to my opinion. He then told me that we can go on separate holidays in that case. I angled myself away from him, and he started ranting at me again about that, but I kinda just tuned him out at this point, as I didn't want to speak to him. Then I put my arm up to kinda block me from his view, to which he said, "Have you got your arm up to block me out?" And I just said yes, because I didn't want to lie to him. He ended up dropping his headphones again, and then couldn't find them, so he come out of his seat to go and speak to the air hostess. When he was away, someone had asked me if I was okay, but I struggled to regulate my emotions due to borderline personality disorder and autism, so I ended up bursting into tears, which I felt bad about because it was the family in front of me that he was the most horrible to, so I didn't really have a right to be that upset. Then the man next to me told me not to let him bully me and told me where they were staying and if I needed help or there was bother that I could go there. When my dad come back, I felt really uncomfortable and he was giving me silent treatment and I ended up with really shaky legs and I couldn't breathe. My dad ignored me, but the very nice man next to me helped to calm me down and then was asking me about my book, and he showed me his Kindle and what he likes to read. My dad ignored me the rest of the flight, but I had to ask him if he could move over a few times as I was sat kinda scrunched into myself as it was, but he kept spreading his legs wide and was in my space, which I didn't want. He went to snap at me when I asked the second time, but he managed to stop himself. It was like a 4-hour flight, and when we landed, I booked myself a flight home and then told him I was going home. He wasn't happy about that, but I just kinda went silent after I'd told him, as I didn't want to argue. The other family of the man next to me let me get off in between them, so that he wasn't right behind me when getting off, and took me to collect my bag and told me where I needed to go for departures. Then I saw the mother of the little girl and apologized to her, and told her that her and her child and her partner didn't deserve to be spoken to like that. When I'd collected my bag, I got a text from my dad saying he was stranded and that his wallet and his headphones and his tobacco had been taken. At first I thought maybe it was security because of how he was acting on the plane, so I replied and said who, and then he called me to go and meet him, which I did. He said he'd been robbed, and the people in front of him had been sliding his jacket from under the seat and taking things out of his pocket. But the seat in front of him was the little girl. He said that's why he was kicking off and that I was siding with them and talking to them through the flight. I said I didn't talk to them at all during the flight, and I was talking to the man next to me. He said that they were all together, but they didn't seem to be, as they didn't really ever interact and were collecting bags separately. He said there was CCTV and the police were involved. I don't really think his story adds up, as his headphones were one of the things he said were stolen, but he had them after he was shouting at the family in front. I said to him, "I'm sorry you were robbed, but you were unkind to me and I didn't do anything wrong." And he started ranting about how he was robbed and I was siding with them again, so I just walked off and haven't seen or heard from him since. That was 2 days ago now. I feel quite bad, as he was excited for the holiday and worked hard to pay for it for us to have a nice time away. And if his headphones and cash have been robbed, that is very sad. AITA for going home because of this and bailing on our holiday? Relevant comments. OOP responds on how her communicating with her father goes. Is he picky over how things should be? OOP. He doesn't usually let me get a word in edgeways and he never really compromises. He'd made me upset the night before because he nitpicked how I packed his suitcase for him and then snatched his duvet off me when I was changing the bedding and said I was doing it wrong. I tried to talk to him about how that upset me the night before, but he wasn't really having it, so I'd just kinda given up TBH. But you are right, I could have discussed it with him a bit more. Commenter 1. You're 26 years old and one of the first things you tell me is your dad gives you spending money while you go on vacation. OOP. I didn't ask for it. He just sent me it, and I did send it back to him when I booked the flight home. I don't have much disposable income, and I'd said, I can't afford to go on holiday, so he said he'd cover it, which I was still hesitant for, as I don't really like taking things from him. Commenter 2. NTA. Your dad is cruel and a narcissist. Go LC with him. He's not a nice human being. If he wasn't your dad, you'd have nothing to do with him. OOP. He hasn't messaged or called since I walked away in the airport, and he said he's done with me, so I do think we'll speak anymore. Is there any chance that OOP's father is dealing with health issues such as dementia? OOP. I talked to my mammy about it, and she said, he's always been like this. I didn't grow up with him, and have only really known him as an adult, so I'm not sure. But I don't think it's dementia, as he's always wanted to dominate conversations with me. But he is my dad, and that means he kinda does have the right to let me know he knows best. Did OOP get to spend some time with her granddad before getting on the airplane with her father? OOP. I did get to spend time with my granddad. I flew over to them before this happened. Sorry if I didn't explain well. My granddad is 85 and has had cancer in the past, and even though he's a trooper and very strong-willed and independent, I don't want to give him any stress. So we'll just send him a thank you card for having me at his home for a night. OOP mentioned she has BPD. Is it a possibility that her father has it too? OOP. I don't think borderline personality disorder is an excuse to shout at people and be nasty, as I have that and I don't treat people meanly. Commenter 3. Your drunk father lost his wallet. NTA. Do not travel with him again until he gets help. Commenter 4. My first thought too. I'd be considering whether dad might have a drinking problem. OP says he had a few drinks. How much did he actually drink? Does dad always act like this when he's drinking, or does he act like this even when he's not drunk? OOP. I looked on my banking and he got 3 nearly 20 euros rounds. Editor's note, approximately 24 USD, that he asked me to order for him. But then I had 2 Diet Cokes included in that. Then I think he got a few with his cash, so he probably did drink quite a lot. Commenter 5. You mentioned your dad's home country. Were you in a foreign country when you landed? The idea that he was robbed by the people in front of him doesn't make sense to me, but was language a barrier, as he was trying to explain? Basically, I think in principle that time with your dad might have been very special, and I'm sorry it didn't work out, but he sounds volatile, inappropriate, and blaming. You sound polite and embarrassed by the scene he caused. If the rest of your time with him was going to be similar to that scene he caused on the plane and in the airport, then you took good care of yourself by getting away from his abuse. Again, I'm sorry that you didn't get the time with your dad that you hoped for, but that was certainly not your fault. OOP. My dad and everyone on the plane all spoke English, and so do I, as we are both from English-speaking countries, so there weren't language barriers with anyone on the plane, but we did fly to the Canaries when we landed where they speak Spanish. The people in the airport and the police he was talking to all seemed to speak English very well though. Update 1. Thank you for the advice on my last post. I have spoken about this with some people I trust, and they pointed out some things that were off, and after thinking about it, I am glad that I didn't go. I will list some things that made me uncomfortable about my dad and this situation that I think may have influenced my decision. Based on thinking about these things, I have also decided to go no contact with my dad. However, it has been a week now since I walked off in the airport on the holiday, and I still haven't heard from him anyways. My friend said I should add a TW for abuse. 1. Once he was texting me and kept joking about ordering condoms and batteries for me, and I said why. So he told me, "It's not weird your dad ordering you something to give you pleasure, is it?" And I told him to stop because he's not funny. And then he said I'd be in heaven and screaming in pleasure when the parcel came and to make sure to send a vid. I said that it was making me uncomfortable, and he said he's my dad and would never mean what I thought he did, and that it was chocolate, and called me a dumbass. 2. He kept making sexual comments about women around me and told me he likes curvy women of a certain dress size. My friend pointed out this is my dress size, and it's weird that he said that, so now I've realized maybe that is weird. 3. The sleeping arrangements for the holiday were that it was a one-bedroom apartment, and I'd take the bedroom and he'd take the sofa so I could have privacy, but he warned me that when I was in the living room on a night that he tends to kick his clothes off so to look away if I don't want to see him naked. 4. My friend said he was quite mean to book a holiday that I probably wouldn't enjoy, as I get anxious and don't leave the house a lot, so would have probably stayed inside all the time anyways. She said he should have booked a Cunard cruise, which was the same price as what he paid, as my special interest is ships, and I know that when I am on Cunard ships, I feel safe to enjoy myself, as I know my way around, and am more confident and able to get out around the ship. Especially as people on Cunard ships speak English, and people where we were going don't. I think maybe he just didn't want to go on a cruise, and I didn't pay for the holiday, so it wasn't my decision, but I have listed this anyways because apparently it means he wasn't prioritizing my wants. 5. The hotel we were staying at was quite isolated and didn't have a 24-hour manned reception desk and was run by one man on his own. 6. He kept interrupting conversations and staring at me just to tell me, "You're so pretty," which was nice at first but a bit much after a while, and I don't respond well to compliments anyways. 7. When I was packing his case, I told him he'll have to pack his own underwear, and he told me he doesn't wear them. 8. He made a joke about his penis to one of his friends while I was in the room. 9. He said he packed a big chef's knife. 10. He kept bragging he slept with an American NBA cheerleader who wasn't much older than me. 11. I like to dress up and wear long vintage-style dresses and dress modest, but he kept telling me not to pack those things and bring shorts and tops instead because of the heat, but I really don't like wearing those things at all. When he saw how packed my case was and that I'd brought lots of long dresses, he got angry with me for packing impractical clothes. 12. He kept snapping at me the day before we went for doing things wrong when I was packing his case or changing his bedding. 13. Always talked over me and didn't let me talk about what I wanted, and when I talked about things I knew about, he undermined me, even though he'd never known about these things before me. 14. Kept talking about sex with me and joking about me riding fellas, even though I said I don't like being touched by people, and also, I don't really want a boyfriend at all. Edit. Forgot to list 15. He kept joking about wearing Speedos and covering himself in oil and becoming a stripper while we were away. These are just a few of the reasons, and I know I am probably being very dramatic, but I think they made me feel a bit icky really, so I don't want to talk to him anymore. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You are not dramatic. You did everything right. And yes, please make a huge bow around your dad. Because what I've read here are so many red flags. It reads like he attempted to SA you on that trip. His behavior, his jokes, everything's pointing in that direction. OOP. I ended up booking tickets home when the plane landed because of him arguing with people on the plane and being nasty, so he didn't attempt to do anything luckily. Commenter 2. WTF did I just read? Why did you want to go on holiday with this predator anyway? OOP. I thought he was just being silly and didn't realize it was a bit weird until other people pointed it out. Commenter 3. Except for number 5, I would completely flip out if my father said any one of the other things. It's not a bit weird. It's totally inappropriate. Please keep yourself safe and don't meet him alone. Have cameras in your house and don't tell him your new address if you move. No father should talk, nor think about this around his daughter. Having you pack his clothes is just weaponized incompetence. OOP. I live on my own in a different country to him. Do you think I will still need cameras in my house? Commenter 4. That's good. My biggest fear was him getting drunk and finding out he needed to punish you. You would want to know and document it if he comes to your house or destroy anything. There is no need for cameras inside, but maybe one door camera for peace of mind. Also to check who is outside before opening. OOP. I have a Ring camera at my front door, and also I have a camera that I don't know the brand of, but it looks a bit like a little man, facing my back garden too. Commenter 5. TBH, based on this post and the last one, I'd suggest talking to your mental health team about whether there are any ways they'd change treatment plans if they were looking at CPTSD instead of or comorbid with BPD. But regardless, you did awesome prioritizing your health and safety by bailing on the holiday. OOP. I do have CPTSD diagnosed too, but I got discharged from my mental health team recently. Commenter 6. Whoa. This is some creepy shit. You did the right thing getting out of there. I strongly advise you to ensure that you are never alone in this man's company.